Cue. A cue is the starting signal that tells your brain a behavior is about to happen. It can be a time, a place, a person, an emotion, or even another action. For example, getting into bed can become a cue to check your phone, while hearing a notification can become a cue to open an app. The important part is that the cue itself is usually not the habit. It is the trigger that activates the pattern. Over time, your brain learns to recognize certain situations and automatically prepare for a familiar response. That is why you can sometimes reach for your phone without consciously deciding to do it. The environment has already provided the signal. Craving. A craving is the feeling that gives a habit its energy. After a cue appears, your brain begins to anticipate something it expects to receive. You might not actually crave the action itself. Instead, you crave the feeling or result associated with it. When your phone lights up, you may crave curiosity, connection, entertainment, or the possibility of something interesting. When you smell coffee in the morning, you may start anticipating alertness and comfort. This anticipation is what pushes the habit forward. Without some expected benefit, many cues would simply be ignored. Cravings turn a passive signal into motivation. Response. A response is the actual behavior you perform after the cue and craving appear. It can be something physical, such as eating a snack, checking your messages, or putting on running shoes. It can also be mental, such as worrying, replaying a conversation, or thinking about what might happen next. Responses can become automatic when they are repeated in the same circumstances. The more familiar the behavior becomes, the less conscious effort it may require. This is why habits can feel effortless, even when they are behaviors you once had to deliberately learn. Reward. A reward is the outcome that teaches your brain that the habit was worth repeating. The reward might be pleasure, relief, stimulation, satisfaction, comfort, or a sense of accomplishment. After the reward arrives, your brain becomes more likely to remember the entire sequence that produced it. This is one reason habits become stronger through repetition. If checking your phone consistently gives you something interesting, your brain starts treating phone checking as a useful response to certain cues. The reward closes the loop and prepares the brain to recognize the same opportunity in the future. The four-part loop. The four-part loop connects cue, craving, response, and reward into one repeating system. Imagine receiving a stressful message. The message becomes the cue. You feel uncomfortable and want relief, creating the craving. You open social media or watch a video, which becomes the response. You temporarily feel distracted, creating the reward. Once this pattern happens enough times, a similar stressful situation may automatically trigger the same behavior. The loop becomes stronger because the brain has learned a reliable connection between a particular situation and a particular outcome. Understanding this structure is useful because it lets you examine a habit as a process rather than simply labeling it good or bad. Context. Context is the surrounding situation in which a habit happens. It includes your location, time of day, people nearby, objects around you, and what you were doing immediately before. Context can become powerful because your brain associates repeated behaviors with their surroundings. A chair might become associated with gaming. A kitchen counter might become associated with snacking. A particular time at night might become associated with watching videos. This explains why changing environments can sometimes make a habit easier or harder. When familiar cues disappear, the automatic pattern may temporarily lose some of its strength. Habit stacking. Habit stacking means attaching a new behavior to something you already do consistently. Instead of trying to create a completely independent routine, you use an existing habit as the cue for the new one. After brushing your teeth, you might immediately drink a glass of water. After making your morning coffee, you might review your schedule. After sitting at your desk, you might spend 2 minutes organizing your tasks. The existing habit acts like an anchor. Because it already happens reliably, it provides a predictable moment for the new behavior. Over time, the two actions can become connected in your routine. Environment. Environment can quietly shape habits by making certain behaviors easier to notice and perform. If snacks are sitting directly on your desk, eating them requires almost no effort. If a book is placed beside your bed, reading becomes easier to remember. If your phone stays in another room while you work, checking it requires an additional step. Small changes to the environment can therefore change the number of cues you encounter and the amount of effort required to respond to them. You are not simply relying on willpower, you are changing the conditions under which the habit operates. Breaking a habit. Breaking a habit usually involves disrupting one or more parts of the loop. You might remove the cue, reduce the craving, make the response harder, or change the reward. Suppose you automatically check your phone whenever you sit down to work. Moving the phone out of reach changes the response because checking it now requires extra effort. You could also replace the behavior with something else, such as taking a short stretch break. The goal is not necessarily to eliminate every urge instantly. It is to weaken the automatic connection between the trigger trigger and the old response by repeatedly creating a different outcome. Building a habit. Building a habit works best when the desired behavior is connected to a clear cue and followed by a satisfying reward. A person who wants to exercise might place their shoes beside the door, choose a consistent time, and begin with a short walk. The cue becomes obvious, the response is manageable, and completing the walk provides a sense of progress. Repetition gradually makes the sequence more familiar. The important idea is that a habit does not need to begin as a major transformation. Small behaviors can become automatic when the same cue response pattern is repeated often enough.